Papa Pepper, homemade fish emulsion, why you shouldn't flush your dead goldfish.
Alright guys, Papa Pepper here, just talking about natural fertilizers, building up my raised beds and really providing my plants with all the nutrients and minerals and vitamins and stuff that they're going to want to be sucking up to create healthy food for us as a family. So if you look at some of my raised beds, you're going to notice things like this. I don't know if you're going to understand what that is right away, but that is a whole pile of little bones. Alright, well, these are where I'm growing my Chinese red noodle beans. That one's going to seed. I got more dangling up high. And we've been harvesting those for a while now. But when I got my raised beds like this, that's really the part of my property that I'm going to be growing my food at. It's going to be in those raised beds. Whatever's there is going to be whatever my plants are getting. So when I initially make them, I like to use a combination of rabbit manure, compost, soil, kind of whatever's available, and begin to make them. But then as years go by, I'm going to have to start building these up. Now this is just my first year putting these in. Some of these are really just weeks old at this point, with tiny seedlings, and we're still hoping to get a harvest from this year. Others are growing, yeah, quite big. They're doing all right. But over time, what I want to do is to keep my pathways mulched and build up, where I may be adding another layer of rocks to the top and actually have that get deeper and deeper going vertically. And then of course, as the nutrients soak down and the roots work down into the soil too, we're going to be getting deeper going down too. So one thing that I always enjoyed using, just because of its results and how it worked for me, was fish emulsion. Now fish emulsions is normally if you're taking fish and you're using it for something like food, there's waste. There's parts of the fish that don't make it into the food. So what they do is they really turn that into a liquid matter that's going to be used as a fertilizer. You can pick it up at hardware stores, gardening centers, stuff like that. And normally you gotta dilute it. It's some stinky stuff, but it works really good. I used to always love using it on my pepper seedlings up north in Wisconsin. And just looking into how can I kind of recreate that in my own life. So one thing is, you know, when you're fishing sometimes for food, sometimes you wind up with little guys that were big enough to swallow the hook, but then they got the hook stuck in their throat or something like that, and the fish is pretty much dead. Now you can toss it back in the water, and you know, maybe it'll wash up on shore and a raccoon will eat it, or maybe some turtles in the water or something like that are going to eat it. But what I've been doing is I've been taking both that and then the parts of the fish that we don't use. Sometimes we do make fish broth and we use the heads and stuff, or the bones, the whole carcasses except for the guts. But I'll just take the whole skeleton once I take the fillets off, and I'll drop that in a 5-gallon bucket. And when I drop that in a 5-gallon bucket, or even put these whole little fish in a 5-gallon bucket, what I do is I leave them out in the sun, covered, for about a week or two, and really in about a 2-week period, within a couple days the fish almost looks cooked. The flesh is white. It's just like it was if you would have baked it, and it becomes all the meat starts kind of falling off the bones, the scales start falling off. Eventually the bones are almost getting to the point where they disintegrate and they begin to break down. Where all you've got left is just some of the bones, and you've got this liquid. So that liquid is something I like to apply to my plants either before or after a good watering. And when I do that, like here, you know, check these out. Right, my big snake gourds, these are the ones I'm saving for seed. And then we've got plenty more we're going to be eating up top. But down here is one example where by the time I dump it out into my garden, that's all that's left. Now this is probably from a bass, the cranium from a largemouth bass that we ate. And you know, look at that, it just breaks into pieces. But we're going to be building these up over time, so even this stuff, I don't have to worry about stepping on this because we don't step in our raised beds. I don't have to worry about getting a sliver in my foot or something like that. And over time, that's just going to break down here with everything else as we keep adding more compost and more rabbit manure and stuff on top. It'll cover that, and it'll all just become part of the soil. So then, like with my noodle beans as well, we'll start building these up. So it's just one way where you can have a simple do-it-yourself fish emulsion on your own land with something that you would kind of be creating or throwing away anyway. For those of us who do fish, for those of us who use that as a source of food for the family, it's not that hard to get fish carcasses, or to take that tiny fish you accidentally caught that the hook got too deep in his throat and the thing's going to die anyway, and say, you know what, I can still use this even as a source of food, you know, in a long about way. where it becomes fertilizer to feed your plants, to enrich the nutrient content of the food you're going to be eating and feeding your family. So I like to keep a bucket going on a pretty regular basis right now, and I'll just continue to go. You know, that one I just dumped out a couple times. I use a little screen, filter it out until it's down to about nothing, and when all I got left is the pure white bones, then I'll actually, you know, dump it out into the garden too. But I want to make sure that that water is soaking up as much of that that just nutritional content and the beneficial properties of those fish when I put them into my garden. So you can see some things are growing pretty good. Hope to keep it up, and don't know if you guys have ever tried that, but I'd recommend at least giving it a try, especially with your scraps. If you got fish scraps anyway, put them to use. All right, Papa out.
As always, I'm Papa Pepper, and I'd like to remind you, don't post for free. If you'd like to be part of a revolution in social media, an economic power to the people where users can actually blog for cryptocurrency, then I'd recommend that you check out steemit.com and join the revolution. Papa out.